Okay, we're good to go.
Good morning. Welcome to our first State Bar Council meeting of 2021. It's kind of amazing that we're gathered here virtually this morning from all over the state to attend to the business of the bar. And in addition to those of us participating by Zoom, I wanted to remind you that we are live streaming on Facebook this morning. Unfortunately, while maybe the end of the pandemic is in sight, it's still pretty far down the road. So we have already made the decision that our April meeting will also be held virtually. Wanted to go ahead and let you know that. Members of the council are hereby advised of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest in the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this council with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict. You may indicate a conflict now or at the time it arises during the meeting. Are there any that we need to hear about right now? All right, thank you. At this time, I'd like to recognize our Vice President, Marcy Armstrong, for our invocation.
Thank you, Barbara. Let us pray. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking the sinful world as it is, not as we would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if we surrender to your will, so that we may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Marcy. Love the serenity prayer. It's my great pleasure and honor this morning to welcome our new Chief Justice, Paul NEWBY. He's well known to all of us, having served on the Supreme Court for 15 years, and somehow still finding time to educate students, law students, school students, scouts, civic business leaders about one of his favorite subjects, our country's history and the role of government. So we welcome you, Chief Justice NEWBY. We look forward to hearing from you this morning. We are very glad to be part of this special occasion. And I'm going to, at this time, turn the virtual floor over to you.
Well, thank you, and good morning to everybody. I want to congratulate each of you, and particularly the new bar counselors, having been recognized by your peers as those they want to represent them at our own governance. Truly, within the state bar, you get all three branches of what we think of government, with legislative and executive and judicial, quasi-judicial powers. And what a huge responsibility. But I can think of no greater recognition than having your peers say, we need you to be our representative. I know you don't do it for the salaries, that you all get for this effort. And I'm just so grateful for each of you. And as I see my dear friend Patty Head, I'm reminded of her dear husband, which just about daily I am. What a great influence on all of us. He has been and is. And we're all about leaving the campsite better than we found it. And that's why you do what you're doing. That's why I do what I'm doing. We love our profession. We love the fact that we are the profession that protects the fundamental rights and freedoms. We give, we're able to give real meaning to that our God-given rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, these fundamental rights are protected, and that everybody in our state is able to enjoy those rights. So I thank you for what you do. I thank you for that high calling. Since this is kind of an introductory meeting, let me just say a few words about myself. I am a North Carolinian. I was born in Randolph County. grew up in a little town, Jamestown. Mom was a school teacher. Dad was a linotype operator, an hourly worker. No lawyers in the family. Met my first lawyer, getting one of my merit badges, headed toward Eagle Scout. Ed Washington, who became a judge there in Guilford County, encouraged me about being a lawyer. I said, well, Judge Washington, there are no lawyers in my family. And he goes, that doesn't matter. I grew up in a family without lawyers too. That's part of the American experience, American dream. So certainly I went from Jamestown to out of state. Actually, Judge Bryant, whom I'm going to talk about in a minute, she and I had that same out of state experience at Duke. And then we went to UNC to law school, or I went to UNC to law school. But before I did that, I had the opportunity to work for Chief Justice Warren Burger at the U.S. Supreme Court. And that really grounded me. It was bicentennial of the Declaration of Independence, and it grounded me in some of the fundamentals of the political theory that's foundational in our country. But it also brought two significant decisions. One, I was going to go to law school instead of med school. And secondly, I decided that I wanted to stay in state. I hated a big city. To me, Washington was a big city. So I went to UNC to law school, best decision I ever made, because I met my wonderful wife there. I then started practicing law, transactional practice in Asheville with the Van Winkle Law Firm. My wife's from Wilson. I wanted to be a little closer to family, so I became a in-house counsel for a guy named David Murdoch that had just bought Cannon Mills. And then in 1985, became an assistant United States attorney, which I did for about 19 years. 2004, Bob Orr resigned, and I ran for an open seat on the Supreme Court. Was fortunate enough to win and re-election in 12 and now in 20. And, I'm just so humbled and honored to have the privilege and the responsibility to oversee our judicial branch. One of the things that I certainly am very driven by in our profession is our constitutional directives. Article 1, Section 18 of our state constitution says that the courts shall be open. It also says that we are to administer without favor, denial, or delay. We're taking that from the Magna Carta. For those of you that know me, like David Allen, it's like, oh no, he's going to go talk about history. Not yet, David, but at some point I will. So I'll leave the Magna Carta for another day. But my humble point is our social contract with the people of North Carolina is that our courts will be open for you to bring your disputes, and we will administer justice without delay. Well, my goodness, how do we do that in the midst of a pandemic? And that's really what we're wrestling with right now. I have just entered my first emergency order. I previewed it with all the stakeholders, Superior Court judges, District Court judges, court administrators, the sheriffs across the state, certainly our elected clerks, all the different stakeholders to be sure. I want all the tools that we have innovatively created to deal with this pandemic in a safe manner. I want those tools available, but on the other hand, I don't know what's best for Chowan County. I don't know what's best for Perquimans. I don't know what's best for Cherokee County or Macon County. Don't you love the name Macon? I do. That's my wife's name. So anyway, I don't know what's best for each of the local counties, but the stakeholders do. And so I have asked them to carefully consider what is best for their own county. I've gotten reports that some counties are thinking about resuming jury trials, and I've gotten reports from others that say, we just can't. That's exactly the way it's supposed to work. But in conjunction with that, I've written a letter to the governor asking him to consider courthouse personnel to be essential frontline workers. I know the State Bar has joined in that request, seeking that same designation for attorneys that are frequently in the courthouses across our state, and I certainly join you in that request. I don't think that justice is a luxury. I think it's a constitutional mandate, and we got to figure out how we can do this. And let me also say this word. Some of the so I've had some good conversations with the governor about how he's weighing these things. And I know he's got a lot of folks pressing on him, but I'm encouraged, and I can't go into the details. I'm going to let him release that at his time. But I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing, that some, if not, certainly some of our requests will be granted. On the other hand, I am hearing some disturbing news that despite the availability of the vaccine, there's an awful lot of folks that are skeptical and not taking it. So they just lowered the age to where I am now eligible, and I certainly, regardless of what my preferences might be, to me, this is a leadership issue. And so I'm going to be getting my vaccine at some point. People have asked me, is it going to be an Elvis moment? I don't know, but I do want the people in our branch to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes for our branch employees or the branch stakeholders, as well as the public, to do whatever is necessary. My 97-year-old mother led the way. She got her COVID vaccine a couple of weeks ago. But I do want y'all to be aware that there's a lot of skepticism among the folks out there. And to the extent that you can be a leader in this, and I'm a firm believer that folks have every opportunity to take the vaccine or to decline to take the vaccine. But to the extent that you can be a leader in this area, I would encourage you to do so and let it be known, just so that we're making that progress. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is I'm sending out a letter today to the sheriffs across our state. It was brought to my attention yesterday during a meeting with the chief judges, Judge Vincent in Greensboro and some others raised some concern about their own personal and courthouse safety during this time of potential civil unrest. And I thought it was a great point. And so I've asked sheriffs to help us as we seek to continue to have safety in and around courthouses for our courthouse personnel and for the facilities in which we administer justice. I would ask that to also be on your radar screen as you see perhaps some increased security at your courthouses. Please thank your local sheriffs and local law enforcement that are trying to create a safe environment for us to do justice without favor, denial, delay. With that being said, I look forward to these quarterly meetings when hopefully I'll have an opportunity to talk to y'all about just different aspects of what's going on from my perspective in the judicial branch. I will say I certainly don't corner the market on good ideas. As you got good ideas, like the judge yesterday was able to help me see, well, we probably ought to ask the sheriffs for a little bit heightened awareness. Anything that you think is important for me to consider, please let me know. I'm certainly willing to consider. And also with regard to our innovation and technological things that we're doing differently, when COVID ends, and yes, I believe at some point it will, when it ends, when that thread ends, certain of these innovations we want to keep. We want to have those tools in our toolbox as long as they're not in some way jeopardizing due process rights. If it's more efficient, or at least giving the court the option of using some of these technological advances, I just want y'all to be thinking about what we can do there. So again, I thank you for your patience in this introductory time. So one of my predecessors, the first Chief Justice I had the privilege of serving under, Chief Justice Lake, in 2006 was looking at his mandatory retirement. I call it statutory senility. But as he was looking at age 72 and thinking about his career as a justice, as well as a practitioner and all the different phases, he, I think, looked at the executive branch and said, well, hey, the governor's got the Order of Longleaf Pine. What kind of award can we come up with in the judicial branch? And so he came up with what would be like an amicus curiae award, friend of the court, someone who has gone above and beyond what we expect in our profession, or certainly in the judicial branch itself. somebody who is deserving of being singled out for distinction for his or her contributions to our branch. And we have one such person today. Judge Wanda Bryant will be my first or the first recipient from me of our Friend of the Court Award. She and I first met in 2004. We were both on the campaign trail. Yes, our Constitution has us being elected. And I met her at a forum in New Bern and was so impressed with the sincerity of her remarks, with her judicial philosophy, the foundational principles that she was able to articulate that day. And she and I were both successful in that election, and she elected again. So I've known her for the 16 plus years that I've been on the court, and even a bit before that. Always been impressed. But John Martin reached that statutory senility, and so when he retired from the Court of Appeals, he also, not only was he chief judge, but he was head of judicial standards. He left some big shoes to fill. And Judge Bryant was selected, and she has just done an amazing job at something that is delicate but essential for the functioning of our branch. The Judicial Standards Commission came into being in the early 70s in response to all the different governmental aspects dealing with post-Watergate or the Watergate kind of understanding of we needed to have some better ways to help our judges, to alert them to when they were in areas that they shouldn't be, and sadly sometimes to even remove them. Judge Bryant has served so well and with great distinction as the head of judicial standards. She recently, December 31, retired from her tenure on the Court of Appeals after 16 years of service, but then also as head of judicial standards. So in just a moment, I'm going to present the award. I'm going to go ahead and read it, and then I will put on my mask. And let me say another word. Okay, so the governor had one, sorry, I'm going to take a brief detour. The governor had one request, and that we set an example by wearing masks. And to me, that's something that is something we should set an example. So I humbly ask that you consider that as well. As I've talked to the Superior Court, District Court, as I've talked to all the stakeholders, I've reminded them that we're the ones who set the example. And certainly that's true for you in your, with your other practitioners. So anyway, that being said, I'm going to put my mask on. I'll get Judge Bryant, who's with me, as well as Carolyn DeBay is here. She is just here for our encouragement and support. And so Carolyn, thank you. But I'll get Judge Bryant up here. I'll make the presentation. Then Judge McGee, Chief Judge McGee is joining us. She would like just to say a word or two on behalf of Judge Bryant. And then Judge Bryant will have an opportunity. I can't tell y'all how much I personally appreciate this opportunity. And as I thought about the correct place to make this presentation to Judge Bryant, this is truly it. You are the leaders of our bar, and I'm just delighted to do that. Give me a moment to read the award, and then I'll get Judge Bryant up and I'll make the presentation. Just a moment. See if we can get this into the camera there. This is our Friend of the Court Award. Sorry for the light glare, but better on this than my bald head. Okay, it says Judicial Branch of North Carolina, Paul Newby, Chief Justice, Supreme Court of North Carolina, Amicus Curiae Award in recognition of her extraordinary contribution to the administration of justice as chair of the Judicial Standards Commission. I do hereby enter judgment and confer upon Judge Wanda G. Bryant the title of Friend of the Court, presented this 15th day of January 2021, Paul Newby, Chief Justice. So with that being said, Judge Bryant's going to come up. I will make the formal presentation, and then Judge McGee will speak, and then Judge Bryant. So Judge Bryant, it's a great privilege to present to you the Friend of the Court Award. Thank you for all the things that you have done throughout your career that exemplify all the great ideals. When you took that oath of an attorney in 1982 and you made those promises before those that were present and before God that you would fulfill the highest calling of an attorney, you have done that. And I thank you for the example that you have shown throughout your career, and particularly the sacrifices that you made to chair judicial standards. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Judge McGee is going to speak.
Right.
And then
Yes.
thank
And
you.
you can stand right there. Yes, or you can hold it whatever you want to. Judge McGee, we're turning it over to you, I think.
Good morning to everyone, to all the North Carolina State Bar counselors, officers, and staff members. And thank you to Chief Justice Newby for the opportunity to join in honoring Judge Wanda Bryant. The people at the North Carolina Court of Appeals, including the judges, the executive assistants, the law clerks, the clerk's office, the Office of Staff Counsel, the IT department, the print shop, the Capitol Police, and our marshals, all have benefited and have wholeheartedly appreciated Judge Bryant for almost 20 years. She is admired for her intelligence, her determination, and her organizational skills. Judge Bryant decides cases with wisdom and with respect for all involved. She is that calm, persuasive voice of wisdom. She understands her decisions are important to people, that they affect their lives deeply. So her opinions are clear, concisely stated, and thorough. Her talent and dedication can be seen in every opinion she authors. In addition to the full-time role as a judge of the Court of Appeals, as the Chief Justice has just shared with you, Judge Bryant has also taken on the special role as the chair of the North Carolina Judicial Standards Commission for more than 6 years. The level of work and responsibility of that position required her to review monthly hundreds of pages of complaints and investigative reports, to speak personally and informally with individual judges to discuss their problems and to share her informal advice. She also presided over monthly commission meetings and several disciplinary hearings each year. Judge Bryant has also spoken regularly at training programs on judicial ethics and rules. She has overseen the talented Judicial Standards Commission staff that is professionally well managed and led by Carolyn Dubé, the Commission's executive director, who was pleased to share these insights with me. Judge Bryant was the first woman to chair the Commission in its nearly 50-year history, and is one of the few African Americans to do so. Understanding the serious nature of the issues considered by the Commission, she led the Commission meetings with decorum, civility, wisdom, and respect. The necessary confidentiality of the work of the Commission and the importance of the mission of the Commission to ensure public confidence in our state's judiciary guided her leadership. She is attentive to details and makes certain the record is clear. And I quote Carolyn, that Judge Bryant drew the respect of everyone, just as she has regularly done in the courtroom of the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Wanda and I have worked side by side for almost 20 years at the North Carolina Court of Appeals, the court that Judge Bryant has proudly called one of the most distinguished appellate courts in our nation. We have also served in leadership roles at the court for the past 6 years, and we've avidly campaigned together during 2 statewide challenging and exciting races. Judge Bryant's attitude toward life keeps her moving forward and overcoming any and all barriers. Her life is filled with love and caring for her husband, Steve, their son, Eddie, her mother, her sister, all her family members. The people of North Carolina have been well served by Judge Wanda Bryant during her many years on the bench. We can all be very proud of what she has accomplished, just as I am today.
Hi there.
Congratulations.
Yes, I
Judge
do at
Bryant.
9 a.m.
And thank
Your
you.
name?
Dion Fortner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge McGee. Thank you, Justice Newby, for this Friend of the Court Award. I am sincerely honored and pleased that you chose me to be the first recipient of the Friend of the Court Award in your tenure that is just beginning as Chief Justice of the state of North Carolina. I am truly, truly honored and humbled to receive this award today. And Chief Judge McGee, I have to say I'm honored by your presence here this morning and by those words that you have shared with this group of people. I have the same sentiments that you shared in terms of being so proud and pleased to have been by your side for my almost 20 years on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and to have been in leadership capacity with you as you marched in and became the best ever Chief Judge of the North Carolina Court of Appeals. One of, well, actually 3 that I served under, but yours was the longest tenure. And I've appreciated the way in which you've handled the courts. We've been involved in numerous court meetings and on numerous panels together, just as you said. We've served on bar committees and other committees, statewide and otherwise. We've shared many speaking panels together, including yearly our Women Judges panels that I think we all enjoyed,
Yes.
where we talked to young law students, for the most part, all across the state in our law schools. That was always very exciting, and the students and the leadership of each of the schools were always excited to have us there, and I enjoyed that so much. And there are a number of things that I'm going to miss about being on the court with you and some of the other members of our court, certainly being involved in the cases that we were involved in. I'll miss the panels that we have been on, the committees and the like. So thank you for your support and your leadership during all those years that I've been on the court. And thank you again for your personal and professional encouragement through the years. Like I said, you've been a great leader, you've been a great friend, and I thoroughly enjoyed our campaigning together. As Chief Justice Newby indicated, we all campaigned together in 2004, and then again in 2012. And by together, I mean we all campaigned at the same time. We all ended up in the same places. Those of you who know about these statewide campaigns know that we literally do go from Manio to Murphy and everywhere in between. We try to get before as many people as possible and do the best job that we can to let the citizens of our state know what it is that judges and justices on our 2 highest courts do, and why it's important to have good people on the courts. And that's very taxing, obviously, physically and otherwise, but which may be part of the reason that Chief Judge McGee and I both decided maybe it was time to not run another statewide campaign.
All right.
But I have to say it was a pleasure getting to know people from all parts of the state, getting to know everyday people, but also lawyers who in each of the counties stepped up and helped and assisted us in so many ways, both financially and otherwise, letting your friends and family know about the judges and justices on the Court of Appeals. I think all of us who've ever run a campaign, excuse me, are so incredibly fortunate to have had the assistance of people like you that are on this screen today, and those of you who are also listening to these words. So I just want to say to all of you that have been supportive in so many ways throughout the years that I've been on the court, thank you. Thank you very, very much. And again, Chief Justice NEWBY, this award means more to me than you can imagine. And I accept this award with great appreciation. And I appreciate that it's been given to me and bears my name, but it bears my name as chair of the Judicial Standards Commission. And that commission is comprised of judges, lawyers, citizen members who day in and day out, and I meet with each panel, there are 2 panels, but each month I meet with the alternating panels. And I have been amazed through my years as chair of the commission at the amount of preparation that each of the members do prior to our meetings. We have really long agendas most of the time, lots of complaints, as you can imagine. And the membership of the commission, they're always prepared, and we're able to go about the business of the commission with expediency and with thoroughness that would not otherwise be possible were it not for the commissioners being fully prepared each and every time. And I just have to give a shout out to them because they made the job of the decision-making that we had to make on each of the cases much easier than it would have been otherwise. And I'd also like to thank, with appreciation, Executive Director Dubé and her staff. I'm amazed that 4 staff members could do so much work to help the work of the commission in general. Those 4 members, those 4 staff people, Executive Director Dubé, her commission counsel, the investigator, and the office assistant, were all able to comb through hundreds and hundreds of complaints, review them, give us feedback on them, and then at our direction, that being the commission's direction, if we ask for more investigation, if we ask for a statement of charges to be issued, if we ask for a hearing on statements of charges, they were the ones to help pull everything together. So while I am so appreciative to receive this award today, Chief Justice NEWBY, I can't again tell you how much it means that you recognize the importance of the commission, and you spoke about that. And so I won't repeat all of what you said, but it's very clear that you understand the importance of the commission to the judiciary of North Carolina. They know the code, they interpret the code every day. Executive Director Dubé in particular regularly advises judges, gives them informal advisory opinions in writing, sometimes just orally, but always teaching judges and advising judges. And in doing that, she made me look good. She helped me to know the code and understand the code. And we made some really tough decisions along the way a lot of times. But it was with knowing that we were ethically bound by the code, and we tried to follow the code as it was written and any past decisions that had been made by previous commissions. So again, I accept this award. Thank you again, Chief Justice NEWBY, for your presentation of this award. I accept it on my behalf again, and on behalf of the entire Judicial Standards Commission, all the commissioners that I work with over these almost 7 years, and the staff that have helped us to do the work of the commission. Thank you again. I appreciate your listening to my words this morning. Yeah.
Congratulations, Judge Bryant, on a well-deserved recognition. You truly have left the campsite better than you found it. And we appreciate that. I wish only that we could be there to give you the standing ovation that you deserve.
I got
in
one
the
here.
virtual world, you'll just have to know that you got a lot of Zoom shout outs and thumbs up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I know you have a lot more business, so I will exit stage left, literally here, with my great thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks again to Chief Justice NEWBY for your remarks. for your leadership, and for your reminder to us that we are also leaders and that we have to set an example for others. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you. I'm afraid I also need to leave, but I'm just so grateful, and I look forward to working with you and the other leaders of the State Bar as we move forward together to provide equal justice for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Chief Justice did a good job of segue into our next item, which is recognition of our new counselors, as he kind of emphasized what really an honor it is that they have been elected in their districts to represent the lawyers there. And I'm just going to briefly recognize each of our new counselors that are here and formally welcome you. We have with us Bert Kemp, our new counselor from District 3. Welcome. Kathleen E, new counselor from District 24H. Kathleen. Daryl Davidson, with District 32. Morning, Daryl. Roy McDonald.
Good morning.
District 33.
I don't think Roy's with us this morning.
Okay, I think he may have mentioned that. Michael Neece, District 38. Morning. We have enjoyed getting to know all of you this week, perhaps better than we intended to in some cases, and look forward to working with you in years to come. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to recognize the president of the North Carolina Bar Association, Mark Holt, and he's had a busy week, I think, of meetings with his board of governors and others, but I want to welcome him and ask if he'd like to make some remarks.
Thank you, Barbara. I am grateful for your leadership, and I greatly appreciate your kind invitation to report this morning on behalf of the North Carolina Bar Association. I also want to express to you, Barbara, and to Darren, Marcy, and Colin, and to the entire State Bar Council, and to Alice and your staff, my gratitude for your dedicated work on behalf of our profession and the public we serve. Our President-elect John Howell, our immediate past President Leanne Neece Brown, our governing boards, and our Executive Director Jason Hensley, and our staff all join me in expressing to all of you our appreciation for our relationship with you as fellow bar organizations, working diligently on matters that are so vital to our state and to our profession. As you know, during this week in a typical January, we would be spending time together at our annual dinner and at each other's meetings and events. And we are grateful that our organizations can work in this digital format, but we want you to know that we can't wait until a time in the future when we can enjoy fellowship together with you again. It was a real honor this morning. I appreciate your invitation to bring these remarks, but it was a real honor this morning to witness the Friend of the Court presentation to Judge Bryant. And so I want to thank you for inviting me to that. I want to join all of you in expressing congratulations to Judge Bryant and in expressing thanks to Chief Justice NEWBY, to Chief Judge McGee, and to Judge Bryant for their distinguished service on our courts. And I join you in thanking Chief Justice NEWBY for the leadership that he is providing to our courts and his remarks this morning. And as you said, Barbara, for recommending to all of us to be a good example for our peers and our fellow lawyers. As our state's voluntary bar, we continue in this challenging time to do all that we can to provide a nurturing, supportive, and welcoming home for our state's legal community. We continue to provide technology and law practice support to lawyers across the state through our Center for Practice Management. We promote and support lawyer wellness through the resources of our Professional Vitality Committee. Our Young Lawyers Division has declared January as Wellness Month, with weekly virtual wellness sessions and activities such as next week's program, Hidden Burdens, Mental Health in the Legal Profession. And we promote and offer Bar Cares, which provides confidential counseling for the legal community and their families. These resources are important in any year, but they're particularly important in this year. And we know that you join us in that belief that we need to look after those in our profession. We also do our best to be a welcoming home to our profession by providing creative events and activities in which lawyers, judges, paralegals, and law students can join together to learn and support each other in ways that are possible in this year. Some upcoming events that we have coming up is our annual Law Student Networking Reception, where students from law schools across North Carolina will join us virtually to meet lawyers in practice areas of their choice. We hold frequent mingling with membership events where lawyers and judges gather. Next month's topic is how to craft enforceable settlement agreements at mediation. Our last topic was tips and best practices for WebEx hearings. And in March, our young lawyers will sponsor their annual Legal Feeding Frenzy, in which law firms and legal organizations across the state will be raising funds for local food banks. And we certainly welcome and invite all of you and your firms to participate in that annual event, which in this year is needed more than ever as demand for food banks grow. An important part of our mission as the voluntary bar is to keep our profession up to date and competent in these challenging and changing times. This summer, we launched new technology, including a new learning platform, which our CLE department now utilizes to host timely live webcast and on-demand CLE programs, including annual programs sponsored by our practice section. Expert Series on-demand CLE is provided monthly to our members as part of their NCBA membership. Engaging topics are selected each month. And I'm very pleased to announce, which you may already know, that this month's program is entitled North Carolina State Bar Update and Ethics Review, an hour-long conversation with your own Peter Bolak and Brian Oden. You can download this program to your learning portal anytime during the month of January and then watch it during the next 90 days. I'd also like to share with you this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so, about a very important report we recently completed and published, identifying relationships between the North Carolina Bar Association and systemic racism. The report is a result of research that began in relation to a North Carolina Bar Foundation Justice Fund that honors Governor Charles B. Aycock. The research followed the issuance of a report by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill earlier this year regarding Aycock and others. Research into Aycock's involvement in the founding of the North Carolina Bar Association led to the need to understand the involvement of participants in the white supremacy political campaign of 1898 with the organization of the North Carolina Bar Association in 1899, and to understand the struggle required for the NCBA to admit its first non-white member in 1967. The report, which includes details of the research, is available on our website. The report also describes the unanimous action of the Board of Governors of the North Carolina Bar Association and the Board of Directors of the North Carolina Bar Foundation, taken on November 23rd, 2020, in response to the findings of this research. These actions include an acknowledgement of the role of several of our organization's founding members and early officers in white supremacy efforts in our state, and acknowledges that our association resisted integration and offers a full and complete apology to all individuals, known and unknown, who were denied admission to our organization on the basis of race. The goal of embarking on this research was to obtain, as best we could, a fuller understanding of the facts regarding our history in relation to systemic racism. For our association to effectively address and move forward on issues of race, and to encourage healing and reconciliation, we need to be aware of and acknowledge events that brought us to where we are today. And I'm grateful to our boards and to our membership for their dedication in examining these troubling historical truths and addressing our past with courage and humility, and doing this for the benefit of our future. This is one step in a process, and I invite you to read the report, including the important steps we're taking as an organization in follow-up to this report. We encourage you to stay connected with us as we continue this vitally important work. And I'd like to finally share with you an update on the North Carolina Bar Foundation. As a growing number of North Carolinians face economic hardships and associated legal needs, the North Carolina Bar Foundation provides our profession opportunities to serve those who need us most through pro bono and public service programs. Our programs now operate in a virtual format, allowing attorneys, paralegals, law students to volunteer remotely. This year's For All statewide day of service is March 5th. Our volunteer attorneys typically answer between 8,000 and 10,000 calls across the state on this annual day of service. This year, For All will take place in a remote format utilizing the phone app Telzeo, which we utilize for our 6 COVID-19 virtual legal hotlines, which served over 3,700 callers in 2020. As with the hotlines, volunteer attorneys will sign up to take calls in the practice areas of their choice. Paralegals and law student volunteers will screen the calls and direct them to attorneys, and attorneys can register now for the For All statewide day of service on March 5th. NC Free Legal Answers continues to be an ideal way for attorneys to provide pro bono advice to low-income North Carolinians during COVID-19. The advice is provided in the practice area of your choice in an email format. Over 1,750 client questions were answered in 2020. NC LEAP currently provides business advice to low-wealth entrepreneurs through information webinars conducted by volunteer attorneys. And our Wills for Heroes program is converting to a virtual format to support volunteer work on behalf of first responders in providing wills, healthcare powers of attorney, and durable powers of attorney. A pilot clinic in the virtual format will occur in the next few weeks. And with our Lawyers in Schools program, lawyers currently are participating in remote learning curriculum of high school civics and social studies online class sessions as guest speakers on topics such as the Constitution and how the court operates. So we are very pleased in this unique year that our foundation, where the needs are greater, that we've been able to provide a virtual format for our lawyers to serve. And we're grateful for the legal community for supporting that. And finally, applications for grants from the endowment of the North Carolina Bar Foundation will be received through February 1st for the 2021-22 funding cycle, which begins July 1st. We invite interested organizations to visit the North Carolina Bar Foundation website for more information and to apply for those grants. So again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide this update today on what we're doing at the Bar Association and the Bar Foundation. As we begin 2021, we hope our members and our profession will recommit ourselves to being a part of a strong legal community in which we support each other and serve those in need. And we thank you, all of you, for the valuable work that you're doing to serve our profession and the public. So thank you again for letting me share this report this morning.
Thank you, Mark. The services and support that you have, the Bar Association has provided not only to the lawyers, but to our citizens, has just really been above and beyond, and we appreciate it. And for those of you that have not yet read the report that Mark mentioned, Peter posted the link in the Zoom, and I just commend it to you. And I think Mark would join me in saying the purpose is not to dwell on the past, but that you need to acknowledge it, understand it before we can really move forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And I love staying through your meetings, but we continue to have meetings today.
I understand completely.
So with apologies, I will exit your meeting. I hope you have a wonderful meeting, and thank you again for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. All right, we will continue with the business of our meeting, and I will call on our General Counsel, Catherine Jean, to make her report.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You have in your materials the quarterly and annual reports of the activities of the Office of Counsel, and I would be happy to answer any questions. No questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jean. All right, we will move into the report from the Executive Committee. Our first item of business is the approval of the proposed minute of this council's last meeting on October 23rd, 2020. Do I have a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we are going to vote by poll. So if Peter, if you'll put that up, you may vote for or against.
That motion carries.
Thank you. There are several matters considered by the Executive Committee that were brought by Finance and Audit, and I'm going to ask that Darren Jordan present those to you.
All right, thank you. Good morning. The Finance and Audit Committee meeting was held yesterday, and we presented to the Executive Committee, which is being presented to the full council this morning, the 2020 fourth quarter financial statements, and we also are asking that the council adopt and accept the 2020 financial statements for the entire year. So that would be our motion coming out of the Finance and Audit Committee through the Executive Committee this morning.
So we have a motion from the Executive Committee to approve the fourth quarter financial statements and the year-end financial statements. That does not require a second. Any discussion, questions, or comments? Okay, we will vote at this time.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
The 2021 budget for the state bar is in the materials on SharePoint. I hope you've had an opportunity to look at that. The Finance and Audit Committee have reviewed those and asked the Executive Committee to adopt and accept those yesterday, which they did. And I'm coming from the Executive Committee this morning to ask that the full council adopt and accept those, the operational budget for 2021 for the state bar.
The motion of the Executive Committee is for approval of the proposed budget for 2021. This does not require a second. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
The proposed budgets for the Client Security Fund Board of Trustees, the Board of Law Specialization, the Board of Continuing Legal Education, the Lawyers Assistance Program, the IOLTA Board of Trustees, and the Board of Paralegal Certification must be approved by the council. The Executive Committee, the Finance and Audit Committee passed on these yesterday and passed them on to the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee comes forward today to ask for acceptance and adoption of those budgets this morning.
Thank you. The motion is to approve the budgets for the various boards that were mentioned. Does not require a second. Any questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote.
And that motion passes.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda has to do with the proposed amounts for certain filing fees. Last year, we passed a rule that allows the council to set filing fees for certain matters involving things like reinstatement from active status and other matters that I'm going to go through here in a second. The Finance and Audit Committee met yesterday and approved and asked the Executive Committee for adoption of the following fees to be set for the coming year. A fee of $125 for the reinstatement fee from active or inactive status. That fee is what we're charging back in 2020, and we're just asking that remain the same. $125 for the reinstatement for administrative suspensions. Again, that's a fee that remains the same. And the other fee that remains the same is the annual registration fee of $500 for interstate and international law firms. There are two fees that we're asking the council to agree or to approve in raising, and that is there was a $2 fee for issuing a stock transfer certificate for the transfer of stock of a professional corporation to another licensee, and also a $2 fee for filing reports and papers relative to professional corporations and professional limited liability companies for the state bar secretary. Those fees presently, or last year, were $2. The executive committee is recommending and asking for adoption fees of $20. It wasn't really worth, basically it wasn't worth taking the $2. It was costing us more than $2 to open the envelope for those fees. So we're asking for that is to be set at $20. Those are the recommendation and the motion from the executive committee.
All right. That motion does not require a second. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Okay, let's vote on approval or disapproval.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
We're asking the executive committee is asking the council to consider a proposed personnel policy change. There are three that we're recommending and asking for adoption today. The first one is to add a volunteer day. That is 7.0 hours in total to each employee's paid time off. That time can be taken at 3.5-hour increments and must be used to volunteer at an identified charitable organization, school, or community service project, or a public service endeavor. We also are asking the council to adopt a policy change with regards to, it's essentially an extension of a policy change we made last quarter because of the pandemic. And that is we extended the emergency paid sick leave, and it was originally adopted last quarter. And it extended to December 31st of 2020, and we're asking to extend that policy to April 16th, 2021, which is the April quarterly meeting for reconsideration at that point in time. And we're also asking to extend the emergency family and medical leave expansion. And both of these are under the first Coronavirus Response Act. We're asking to expand that to April 16th of 2021 as well. Which will be the next council meeting. So we ask for adoption and approval of those.
So motion from a committee does not require a second. We will be voting on all three of those policy changes unless someone wishes to have them considered separately. Let me know if there's any questions, comments, discussion. Let's vote.
This is passes 54-1.
Thank you. And just want to say that I'm grateful that we can support our staff in this matter, and especially that they are so willing to engage in this volunteer work, and I'm glad that we can help on that. Darren, anything else from Finance and Audit?
I don't have anything else that I'm aware of that we need to bring forward.
Okay, thank you. Can you then switch your hat and put on your appointments advisory hat and give us that report?
I'll switch my necktie if you want.
There you go.
Barbara, I apologize, it's Alice. Was one other item, and that was the increases in the specialization and paralegal exam fees.
By both of us. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't, those were.
I'm sorry, I went a little quicker on the draw.
I'm sorry, there it is. The last item that we have, thank you, Alice, is consideration of proposed increases in specialization and paralegal certification exam fees. The exam fee for the specialization board currently is $150. The executive committee is requesting that the council adopt a $200 fee for that exam. The paralegal board exam fee is $50. Presently, we're asking the council to approve an increase to $100 for that exam fee. That would be the motion coming out of the executive committee.
All right. That motion requires no second. Any questions, discussion about the increase in fees? Seeing none, let's vote on that.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Now I'll switch neckties.
All right.
The appointments advisory committee met. We considered the one appointment to be made to the Client Security Fund Board. That's a 5-year term. Judge Calvin Murphy's term is expiring in October, and he is not eligible for reappointment. The executive committee recommends the appointment of Erica D. Jones, and I think she's from Durham. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
She actually is from Raleigh.
Okay.
Raleigh.
Thank
So
you.
Erica D. Jones is our recommendation and for appointment to the Client Security Board.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that motion to appoint Erica Jones? Seeing none, let's vote.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. The lawyers, the next matter that we took up was the Lawyers Assistance Program Board. There are 3 appointments that need to be made. The first one, as most people might know, this board's made up of 9 members. One of them has to be a counselor, one has to be a volunteer to the LAP committee or program, and one of them has to be a clinician. We recommend that Evan Rawls, counselor from Charlotte, be reappointed to the LAP board. We recommend Tim Carroll to be appointed as the clinician, and we recommend that Shelley Buckner from Silva be appointed as the volunteer to that committee.
I recuse myself on this vote.
Thank you, Evan. Any other comments or discussions on this motion? Okay, and let's go ahead and vote.
And that's unanimous.
I'm failed to mention, we want to thank Connie Millay and Lene Borsman for their service. That's who Mr. Carroll and Shelley Buckner are taking the place of. The executive committee also took up the issue with regards to the chair and vice chair of the Lawyers Assistance Program Board. The past chair, or the chair, is Ted Edwards. And Lene Borsman, who we just replaced with Shelley Buckner, was the vice chair. The Appointments Advisory Committee met, and the executive committee is recommending that Theodore C. Edwards II, as we know, Ted Edwards, and Crawford Cleveland be appointed. That is Ted being appointed the chair, and Crawford Cleveland, who is a volunteer member of the LAP board, to be the vice chair. That would be our recommendation and motion.
Thank you.
And I need to recuse myself for this one.
Thank you, Ted. Motion is before you. Any questions, comments, discussion? Let's vote on that.
And that's unanimous.
Okay, thank
As
you.
past chair of that board, I want to thank Ted and Evan for their hard work. That's a very worthwhile cause for the state bar. And as I always said, it's the best thing lawyers do for lawyers. The next matter we took up was the Board of Law Examiners. There is one appointment to be made. That appointment occurred because of the death of Judge Erwin Spainhour, who died in September of 2020. He has, this is a 3-year term. There is essentially from now until October of this year of 2021, which is the remainder of that term. The Board of Law Examiners, well, the Executive Committee is asking for the appointment of Ronald Gibson, former Vice President or former President of the State Bar, to fill that unexpired term of Judge Erwin Spainhour on the Board of Law Examiners. That's our motion.
Okay. Motion to appoint Ron Gibson to fill that term. Any questions, discussion? Okay, let's vote on that.
That's unanimous.
That would be the report of the appointments, well, coming from the Appointments Advisory Committee and the Executive Committee.
Thank you, Darren.
Yes, ma'am.
We now have some proposed rule amendments for publication. And I'm going to kind of lump some of these together, and if any of you need to have them considered separately, you can let me know. The first one would be an amendment, and all this was published in your material, an amendment that would permit the bar to send notices for district bar elections, to send those by email. Okay. The second one would be proposed amendments to the rules for legal specialization that would eliminate the specific time of year for an annual meeting and correct references to the rules of professional conduct. And then there are amendments to several of the specialty certifications. And those will kind of make those consistent with each other and enable the specialization program to send peer reference forms for all specialties by email. So as to those three amendments, is the motion of the Executive Committee that they be published. Is there any questions or comments on that? Okay, and hearing none, let's vote on that.
And that's unanimous.
Thank you. Also for publication would be the rules for a new specialization category in child welfare law. So that'd be a new certification. And the standards are comparable to the standards for our other specialty certifications, and it was all set out in your materials. It's the motion of Executive Committee that we publish these rules for the child welfare law specialization certification. Any questions, comments?
That's unanimous.
Thank you. And I just want to say that we have a very robust specialization program, and that is now our 14th specialization category. Okay. Next, we're going to move to a proposed rule amendment that has been published. And so it would now be moved for adoption by the council. And just as a reminder that if that motion passes, it will then need to go to our Supreme Court for approval. So this is an amendment to our rules governing admission to the practice of law, and it's really sort of a technical amendment that removes the county requirement for the bar exam location so that it can be administered anywhere within the state of North Carolina. So that was published. I don't believe there were any comments. It's the motion of the executive committee that the council adopt this rule amendment. Send it to the Supreme Court. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. And I will mention at this time that, as many of you know by now, the bar exam in February will be administered remote. So there is a need to have this flexibility. All right. Unless Alice corrects me, I believe that was the business of the executive committee. And I will ask at this time if Everett Thompson will present the report of the administrative committee.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be, let me see if I can see how I'm doing here. I guess I'm on, are you seeing me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. This is the administrative committee, and we have a great committee. I'll just tell that to everybody. And we have a number of petitions that we went over, and what we'll be asking, of course, the council is to grant these petitions that we've approved. And let me go through the various ones that we do have and the ones that we dealt with, of course. And you have in your agenda a complete list of everything that we looked at this week, so you can look at them also. But in summary, for inactive petitions that were filed, there were 221 lawyers were transferred to the inactive status based on our approval. Of those, 39 were granted upon satisfying requirements by the April meeting, and 5 were granted non-pro-tunc petitions. Those were where their inactive status would be back run to 2019. One was, I think, 2016. Now, one thing we did vote on was the fact that there were some petitions that probably should have arrived on time, but because of slow mail, they did not. And the committee voted to allow me to approve any petitions that should have arrived, but then will come later in the mail. The next item we had were for petitions for emeritus pro bono practice by inactive members. And that would be members that would go inactive and also be emeritus pro bono, and 2 lawyers were granted that. We had next for petitions for reinstatement from inactive status, and we had 8 lawyers were reinstated from inactive status. Then we had reinstatement from suspended status, and 4 lawyers were granted reinstatement from suspended status, but of those 4, 2 were granted had to complete their requirements prior to the April meeting. And we had petitions for pro bono. Hey, you're all right. We had petitions for pro bono practice for out-of-state lawyers, and 2 out-of-state lawyers were granted pro bono practice. And then at the end of our report in your agenda, you'll see a list of lawyers. There's 64 lawyers there that will be issued suspension orders for failure to comply with membership and or CLE mandatory requirements, and 9 lawyers will be issued notices to show cause for failure to comply with mandatory membership requirements. And what we request is that if you see a lawyer in there that's in your district, to give them a call and just remind them that they may get this notice and they might do something about it in the meantime. Now, if there's an asterisk beside one of those lawyers' names, you don't need to make a courtesy call. But if they have any questions, if there's a CLE compliance, then you could have them refer to Deborah Holland. She's our managing director of the CLE. Some of those are judicial district fees that hadn't been paid, so they'll have to deal with their local district. But if they have any other questions, they can certainly contact Tammy Jackson, who's the Director of Membership. And that's all my report, Madam President.
And do you have a motion about acceptance of your report?
Yes, I move that our report be granted for these petitions that we approved in our meeting.
Okay, so this would be a motion as to the entire report.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That motion does not require a second. Is there any discussion, comment? We'll vote on that.
And that's unanimous.
Thank you, Everett.
Thank you.
I'll ask Andrea Capua to present the report of the Authorized Practice Committee.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be making this report, which is my first report of the first meeting of 2021 as chair of the Authorized Practice Committee. And I'm going to take the lead of Catherine Jean, and I'll keep this short and sweet. The minutes of the council, the minutes from the meeting are in your council packet if you want to look at detail. But here is a summary. The committee met and the decisions were as follows. We voted to issue 12 letters of caution. We referred 3 matters to regulatory authorities. We closed 5 files with no action. We continued 1 matter until April. For prepaid legal service plans, the staff registered 22 amendments to existing plans. They reviewed and registered 6 initial registrations. 1 plan was reviewed and resubmitted. That is pending review. 3 amendments are pending review, and all but 2 plans that are in existence were submitted for annual reviews. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much. There are no items in that need to be voted on.
That's correct.
Thank you. All right, then I will ask Dorothy if she will present the report from our communications committee.
Good morning, everyone. Like Andrea, I am happy to be chair of the communications committee and to give this first report of the year. We met this week as well, and I want to give you all just a short just overview of what we talked about and report. We did a 2020 4th quarter recap, and which included the recap and the report on our live streaming, as you all know and have participated and have come to enjoy, I hope, in some way. We have been live streaming like crazy. I think we got numbers, and there's been a lot more involvement. People looking on YouTube and the Facebook Live and trying to participate in that way. So in that way, in that regard, being on Zoom has been really, really good for people to participate and learn more about what we do as a state bar. We also got an update on the database software project, which began in November and is rolling out soon in 2021. Moving forward, we will continue to have the wonderful podcast that Mark Enriquez has been so gracious to head up for us. And so we encourage you all that if you have any topics that you think would be great for a podcast, or if you would like to participate in a podcast by being a guest or a speaker on those, we certainly encourage you to do that. We know we have some wonderful folks that would love to get that airtime. And so we encourage you to get in touch with Mark or myself in order to get on there. We also got an update on our conference room technology study. And so Peter gave us the report that we have received some funds, I believe it's $5,000 in order for us to get updated technology, since seeing as though in this whole Zoom world and streaming, and we need better technology in order to improve that. I know you all, if we were in person, we might see Peter rolling around with his cell phone and a tripod and different things. And so we want to get him some better technology, and so that when either live streaming or when we are able to see each other in person, we have much better technology in order to simulcast and broadcast that out to the general public. With that being said, we also decided to do a study and create a subcommittee in order to study whether or not we should live stream the DHC hearings, whether that should be all of them, or what I consider what are the detriments or the benefits in live streaming those DHC hearings. So we will be conducting a study about that. As you know, that the DHC hearings are public. However, of course, when we're in person, there are not as many people that would show up. We have had a few that have been live streamed, and a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot, but there were some people that were quite interested in some of the hearings that we have had, and they showed up and they gave us a lot to work with, and we decided that we should do a study about that. And so we will have that moving forward. And just one last thing finally, or two last things. One, we also want to do a lot more, be more vigilant about communicating with our local district bars so that we can do better with our communication with them. By way of executive directors or the heads of those organizations, as well as revamp our bar counselor newsletter. I know that when I first came onto the bar council, I remember, well, before I came onto the bar council, I remember one of our counselors from Durham used to always put out that bar council newsletter, and it was very well received. And so we would like to revamp that in a way. So be on the lookout for that. Peter is going to work on that and hopefully get us some templates so that we all can do that and get that to our members, because we know that our members would take things and receive information much better from us, being the bar counselor from our individual districts, as opposed to some mass emails and information that's sent out by the state bar as a whole. And then, yes, that's it. So I said both of those in one. So that is the report of the Communications Committee. I'm excited about what we will do. As you see that, like I said, I think that we've done a wonderful job, and I'm glad to see, just another little note about live streaming in this Zoom. It's good to see that we all are getting more acclimated to the Zoom features, and Peter is keeping us up and abreast of all the different changes that take place. And it's good to see that we were able to roll with the punches and move forward. And I thank you for allowing me this time to give this report.
Thank you, Dorothy. As you were talking, I was reflecting that last year at this time was our last in-person meeting. And at that meeting, of course, we had no idea what the rest of the year was going to bring and how far we've come in technology since then. And I thank the Communications Committee and I thank the members of our staff. You've been flexible, you've adapted, and it's just been terrific that we're able to be here today. So, I will call on this time David Allen to present the report of the Ethics Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. One of the advantages, the few advantages of us not meeting live and together is that because of the staggered schedule, it allows a lot more counselors to visit with a lot more committees, and that actually has been beneficial. Ethics met yesterday, had a full agenda, and we had lots of visitors, which is nice. Counselors who are on grievance, a number of them were able to join us for parts of our meeting. And I think that shows a little bit about what an interesting set of topics we had. And if you look at your agenda, the Ethics Committee report that's attached, to just the inquiries that we dealt with yesterday really ran the gamut of just really some pretty vital topics. One of the first ones that we had to deal with yesterday was the use of what we call machine learning, what some of us who are less technologically savvy would call artificial intelligence. I think we decided to call it machine learning so as not to imply that you had to have any intelligence to actually be engaged in the practice of law. But that's a cutting edge topic. A couple of other state bars have already weighed in on the use of artificial intelligence, and we'll be opining on that in the coming months. I mentioned this and a couple of other ones that we've got, just because if you are a member of the council and want to join any of these subcommittees and watch their deliberations or participate in those, you can certainly do that by phone. Most of them are Zoom these days, but some of them are still done by conference call. But if you see a topic that's on here that you have some interest in, please feel free to join those subcommittees or come to the Ethics Committee next April when we discuss these. We'd like to encourage that. It also should be reaffirming to Dorothy and the Communications Committee that people actually do read the State Bar Journal. I've always done that and always have figured that people did that. But this quarter, we got more commentary on ethics that we had, ethics opinions that we had sent out for publication than we ever have. I don't know whether that's because people are sitting around in quarantine with nothing to do, or whether it reflects on the interest that's really in some of the ethics inquiries that we had. But if you look down, just if you take a look at the ethics report, a couple of ones that did provoke a good bit of response. One was communications with judicial officials, and the one that really prompted the most, well over 30 responses came in on a proposed FEO for commenting on the publicity with respect to client information contained in public records. Just fascinating topics and things about which there's good, healthy debate. We encourage you to participate in that. We had our normal report from the random audits that were conducted in 2 districts last quarter. Sadly, the same things continue to pop up every quarter on that, which is dealing with trust accounts, particularly with reconciliation and failure to actually physically check those records. And that's just something that we need to be alert to and encourage members of our in our districts to take care of that. The staff was very active, as they always are, in the last quarter. Brian gave 3 presentations on CLE presentations around the state by Zoom in the last quarter. And he and Peter, as you heard Mark Holt mentioned, he and Peter will be Zooming in for the Bar Association on one of its seminars coming up soon. We also had activity on the State Bar's ethics hotline. We had 800 inquiries. We generally get about 1,200, 1,300 inquiries per quarter. We average about 5,000 a year. So this was down a little bit. But that's normal. This quarter is usually the slowest quarter for ethics inquiries because of the holidays. But we still had Suzanne, Nicole, and Brian handling almost 1,000 inquiries that came in on the ethics hotline. Again, something that's of great benefit to our members. We encourage all of the counselors to remind folks that they can do that. We only have, did have 2 matters we published, Madam President, that did not receive any comment, and we moved their adoption by the council. The first is proposed 2020 FEO number 2, advancing client portion of settlements. This is an ethics opinion which deals with when a lawyer can advance some settlement funds and when they can't. It's a well-reasoned, well-crafted one, sets out some narrow exceptions for when settlement funds can be advanced to clients, generally reaffirms the prohibition on advancing those funds when there's litigation pending. The other is proposed 2020 FEO 5, which is lawyers' responsibility for avoiding fraudulent attempts to obtain entrusted client funds. This is in the real estate context, when it's the lawyer's responsibility to inform clients to be careful about wire transfers. Just really sets out some practical guidance for lawyers in dealing with advice to clients so that they will not have client funds disappearing on wire transfers. We would move the adoption of those 2, which we received without comment after publication this last quarter.
Thank you, David. Motion does not require a second. Are there any questions, discussion, comment? Okay, please go ahead and vote.
And that's unanimous.
Madam President, that would be the report of the Ethics Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We'll now turn to Matt Smith, Chair of the Grievance Committee. And Matt, I hope that some of these ethics opinions we're adopting will keep some folks from appearing before your committee.
Thank you, Madam President. That is our hope. First off, I want to take a little point of personal privilege and thank the vice chairs of Grievance, being Kevin Williams and Heidi Bloom and Catherine Fry, who, despite the ineffective leadership of the chair of Grievance, did a wonderful job. I also want to thank Todd Brown and Mac McCarley, my predecessors, for kind of cluing me in on what I'm supposed to do and not supposed to do. Staff council, as always, did a fine job this quarter, as they always do. The grievance committee reviewed 136 items this quarter. 74 of those files were dismissed. 1 file was stayed or continued. 2 lawyers were referred to the lawyer assistance program. 3 lawyers were referred to trust account compliance. 4 lawyers received a letter of caution. 17 lawyers received letters of warning. 3 lawyers received admonitions. 6 lawyers received reprimands. 4 lawyers received censures, and 6 lawyers were referred to the Disciplinary Hearing Commission. That would be the report of grievance, Madam President.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments for Matt? All right. Thank you. I'd like to call on our Vice President Marcy Armstrong to give us the report of Issues Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. We have several committees studying some very important issues that relate to our role in regulating the practice. First, we have the subcommittee on compensation of court-appointed defense counsel. This is chaired by Alan Cobb. The purpose of this committee is to determine whether excessive caseloads and low compensation rates are impacting the competent representation of defendants by private defense counsel. The subcommittee is sending out a survey to help with their work, and they will report back in April. The next subcommittee is to study proposed regulatory change that is happening in other jurisdictions. This is chaired by Mark Enriquez. Purpose of this committee is to look at how other jurisdictions are changing the regulation of the practice of law to improve access to justice. Mark and his committee members are continuing to work hard and will update us on their work in April. We now have a subcommittee on diversity and inclusion. This is chaired by Todd Brown. And the purpose of this committee is to look at ways the state bar can address race issues within the legal profession, as well as other diversity issues. This committee had its initial meeting, and Todd reported that the members of the committee had a robust and productive discussion and are well underway with this important work. And I attended that, that meeting, and I will concur that I think it had a very good initial meeting. So we look forward to the hard work of that committee and the reports to come in the future. The newest subcommittee is to study the expansion of secured leave. There are some lawyers that have expressed the need to take less than 5-day increments to have some in-office time to catch up on work, and also possibly to have an additional week to allow lawyers to attend CLE or to participate on commissions and boards. Apparently our secure leave policy has not been updated in 20 years. So we envision that this will be a joint initiative with the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. So we're in the process of appointing members to this subcommittee that will be, of course, state bar counselors as well as Mel Wright, and hopefully we'll get some input from Mel as to other members that should be on this subcommittee. That is a report of the Issues Committee, and unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you. And Marcy, as you were reporting that we formed this new subcommittee on diversity and inclusion, it reminded me that some of you may have been wondering that you're aware that we had appointed some proposed rule amendments to add a CLE requirement related to diversity, inclusion, and elimination of bias training. So we had published that. We got several comments both for and against that proposed rule amendment, and just wanted to inform you and let you know that the decision was made to send all those comments back to the CLE board and let them consider it. So if you're wondering why that wasn't on the agenda, that's the reason. I'd like to call on Michael Ramos for the report of LAMP.
Madam President, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, we met Thursday, the LAMP committee did. I don't have any action to report. The focus of the committee has been trying to put together another CLE program for military lawyers and lawyers who delve in military issues. The consensus of the committee was that we're going to have to wait till this pandemic plays out somewhat, because we do it in conjunction with UNC law, and they're not willing to have any kind of in-house CLE until this thing plays out. So we're still working on that, but that's my report.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call on Jay White for the report of the Legislative Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I wanted to let everybody know that we're doing exciting and tireless work on the Legislative Committee. Gibeon, helped by Peter and staff, they're just phenomenal. The work that we're doing is imperative, just like everybody's, to the august body of the North Carolina lawyers. You will receive, coming up in the next month or so, receive pre-printed notes that we're asking that you use to thank the legislators and senators for their service and offer your expertise in legal matters affecting their constituents as well as the North Carolina State Bar. If you will complete the additional notes, if you need additional notes, and just let us know, we will get them to you. We'll also collect them back from you and hand deliver them to the legislators. Some of the priorities that we have is that we want to resolve the judicial and the prosecutorial district mismatch. And we also want to get passage of the state bar dues bill. These are important topics, and it starts with a ground effort of connecting and developing strong relationships with our legislatures, which we should be doing anyway, but we know that we can count on you to do that, and we certainly appreciate it. We have nothing further at this time, Madam President.
Any questions for Jay? Thank you. All right, I will now ask Warren Savage if he will give the report of the Distinguished Service Award Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. This time I'd like to move to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A2, to prevent the premature disclosure of an honorary degree, scholarship, prize, or award.
A second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor or against? Let's vote on that.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. And I'll just ask
The committee is moving with approval of the executive committee that the council approve the nominations of the two lawyers discussed in closed session for presentation of the John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award, subject, of course, to our standard due diligence checks.
Thank you. Motion from a committee. I don't believe that needs a second. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Then we will vote on that.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. All right. Moving right along.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you. Our last item of business is our formal, albeit virtual, presentation of our resolution of appreciation to our past president, Colin Willoughby. We read it at the last meeting, so we won't read it again this morning. But suffice it to say that Colin's years of service and leadership have and continue to be invaluable to us. So when I was thinking about this, I asked myself, what would Colin say about this? And I think it would be something like, it's better to be a has-been than a never was. So Colin, you're not either a has-been or a never was, and I hope you'll accept this from us with all the gratitude and affection that it's given to you. He'll have this to hang in his office or whatever he wants to do with it. Nicely done. Sorry, I can't hand it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you all for the kind words. Thank you for everyone's perseverance and hard work during this last year and helping. And I especially am grateful for the low expectations everyone had of me in this past year. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And as we wind down, we often talk about the State Bar Council as being like a family. We this week was an example. We have spent so much time together, put in a lot of hard work together. And so I just wanted to update you on a couple of things. One, we know that we've had counselors that have lost loved ones since our last meeting, and I think we've all kept them in our prayers. We welcomed Roy McDonald as a counselor this time, and just want to let you know that we had found out just maybe the meeting had already started that Sally Strohacker had not run for re-election and has resigned from the practice of law due to health reasons. And we also got word during the council meeting that Rick Buckner has resigned as a counselor for personal reasons. So, when you lose one of your family members for whatever reason, it is a loss, and just keep them in your mind. And just at the very end, I guess, if anybody has another concern they'd like to share, I'd invite you to do that. Or if there's any other item of business that needs to come before the group. Well, it has been a long week. I think, as Dorothy said, one of the advantages of doing by Zoom is that the meetings are not concurrent, and so we can go to all of them, and that is at the same time one of the disadvantages. So thank you for your participation, your hard work. Special thanks to the staff, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We can vote by acclamation. You can indicate your assent by waving goodbye.